I didn't go to the Velvet Finch expecting revelation. I went because it was Friday, because Maya had survived another week of micro-budget spreadsheets without screaming, and because I needed to feel something other than the chill of our overpowered office AC. The air outside was warm in the kind of way that presses gently at your collarbone, urging you toward life. The neon sign above the Finch flickered pink and orange against the summer dusk, and the muffled pulse of music vibrated faintly through the sidewalk. I remember thinking the night smelled like lime zest and possibility. Jennifer elbowed me as we approached the door. If I don't make out with someone tonight, I'm demanding hazard pay for my emotional labor. She always said things like that, dramatic for effect, then soft underneath. Inside, the bar was its usual palette of ambient gold and neon pink, mirrors and shadows, bass you could feel in your ribs. I felt the music before I actually registered the room. A slow-building dance track that made the air feel charged, like a held breath. I let the beat loosen my shoulders. We weren't even 2 steps in when something changed. A ripple of recognition, the kind that starts in the corner of your eye before it catches up to your brain. The door swung open again behind us, bringing in a cool gust of night air. I turned automatically, and my breath stuttered. Daniel. My boss, in a plum-wrap dress that draped with leisurely elegance, as though it had known his body far longer than I had known him. His dark hair, normally cropped short, neat enough to make corporate HR swoon, fell in soft-styled waves around his face. Makeup dusted his features with a quiet precision. Rose lip, careful liner, the faintest shimmer on his cheeks, catching the bar's lights. It took a moment to connect the version of him I knew from morning meetings, the one in fitted button-downs and quiet ties, with the person standing there, holding the strap of a small clutch with gentle determination. His eyes found mine before he could hide. They widened with that sharp, startled awareness we both felt. For a heartbeat, he looked like someone caught on the edge of a cliff. I reacted without thinking. I smiled, tiny, steady, private, the kind you reserve for trust that hasn't yet been spoken aloud. His shoulders loosened. "Lily," he said. His voice was soft, warmer than at work, the kind of voice used when you put down your shields. "Hi," I answered, equally quiet. He approached like someone testing the temperature of water. I led him to a side booth, not asking questions, not making assumptions. The vinyl seat clung lightly to my legs when I sat, and the table vibrated faintly with bass. "You must have questions," he said after a long exhale, fingers worrying the edge of his dress. "I only have one," I said. "Are you okay?" His breath hitched, and he blinked, as if no one had asked him that in a long time. "Yeah, I think so. Now I am." We spoke for almost 2 hours, initially about nothing. The drink menu, the DJ, the chaotic state of office coffee machines. But slowly, in gentle spirals, he let himself speak more truthfully. "I've always felt connected to feminine presentation," he said, eyes fixed on his cocktail. "Some weeks more than others. Sometimes it feels like alignment." He breathed in, then out. "But it's not something I share. I've been hiding it so long it feels like muscle memory." I didn't prod him for details. My role wasn't interrogation. It was witness. And witnessing is sometimes the most intimate, careful form of connection. "You look beautiful," I said, and I meant it. He swallowed hard, trying not to let the emotion show too obviously. "Thank you." By the time last call came, my friends were too drunk to realize I'd drifted into a world apart from them. Daniel and I stepped out together into the soft drizzle that had begun to fall. The streetlights smudged in the wet air, turning the night into painterly streaks of gold and violet. "Please don't tell anyone," he said, voice trembling with the fragile weight of asking. "I won't," I said. "This is yours." His relief was palpable, like a breath finally allowed. We parted at the intersection, and I watched him go, careful with the hem of his dress, with a grace I didn't know he had. Monday at work felt like a different universe. Fluorescent lights, coffee-stained mugs, the smell of someone microwaving fish. I half expected Daniel to pretend none of it had happened. Instead, he handed me a file, and his nails, painted pearlescent lavender, caught the light like a tiny secret. He didn't mention it. I didn't either. But we both smiled. As the weeks stretched out, little shifts appeared. Daniel's shirts softened. His ties disappeared. Once, he wore a bracelet so delicate I almost didn't notice until I saw how his fingers kept brushing it instinctively, as if confirming its presence. He carried tension with him, a low hum of anxiety, watching for reactions that never came. One Thursday afternoon, he appeared at my cubicle. "Can I borrow you for a minute?" His voice bore a quiet tremor. He led me to a small conference room. He closed the door but didn't sit. He leaned against the table like someone bracing themselves. "I feel like I'm living in 2 layers," he said. "One that feels honest, and one that feels necessary." His hands twisted together. "I want to try blending them a little, at work, but I don't want to cause a disruption." "What does blending look like to you?" I asked. He took a breath so sharp it almost whistled. "A women's blazer, maybe soft-cut slacks, something professional. Nothing that would make anyone uncomfortable." "You won't make anyone uncomfortable," I said gently. "Being yourself isn't disruptive." His eyes glistened for a moment before he blinked it away. "I'm scared." "I know," I said, "but I think you'll also feel free." Monday arrived like an unveiling. Daniel walked through the office wearing a slate blue women's blazer that framed his waist elegantly, a cream blouse with a soft bow, and tailored trousers that fell perfectly. His hair was styled with a slight wave. Lavender polish returned in glossy confidence. No one said anything. A few people paused, recalibrated, moved on. The office hum remained unchanged, but Daniel was not. When he passed my desk, he whispered, "Still here?" I smiled. "I see you." Over the following weeks, the atmosphere around him shifted. He seemed to breathe more deeply. During meetings, he spoke with more ease, no longer holding himself so tightly. When he laughed, it sounded like something unbound, but authenticity is rarely a straight line. There were days he showed up in a traditional shirt and slacks, withdrawn, quiet. One morning, I found him in the break room staring into the middle distance, untouched coffee cooling beside him. "You okay?" I asked softly. He startled. "Yeah, just thinking." He shook his head. "I keep worrying I'm confusing people, that I'm being unprofessional." "You're being human," I said. "People can handle complexity." He didn't answer, but his eyes softened. A few weeks later, HR scheduled a mandatory workplace inclusivity workshop, the kind with stock photos and awkward icebreakers. Daniel looked miserable the whole time, trapped between visibility and exposure. But the trainer mentioned gender expression as a protected category, and I saw Daniel's spine straighten almost imperceptibly, like a tiny permission slip. One evening, I stayed late drafting a report. The office was dim and golden, the sunset melting across the floor. Daniel passed by, hesitated, then approached my desk. "I've been thinking about the Finch," he said. "Going back. In femme, I mean." "That sounds wonderful," I said. He shifted on his feet, nervous. "Would you come with me?" "Of course." Saturday night, the bar hummed with warm electricity. When Daniel arrived wearing a wine-colored sheath dress and delicate earrings, something inside me squeezed. Not romantic attraction, but a profound tenderness. He looked present in himself, not performing, not hiding. We danced a little, talked a lot. Someone complimented his dress, and he glowed. For the first time, he wasn't glancing around for judgment. He was simply living. Later, sitting at the bar, he said, "I always thought I had to pick a lane, masculine or feminine, Daniel or—" He trailed off. "Or?" I asked gently. He smiled, shy. "Dani sometimes?" I nodded. "You can have more than one truth." His eyes welled and he turned away to hide it. But I saw, after that night, Daniel, sometimes Dani, began inhabiting a fuller spectrum. Some days he wore subtle feminine touches. Others, he embraced softness entirely. He also started a support group outside of work, meeting other adults navigating gender expression. He told me later that hearing other people's experiences helped him realize he wasn't alone, or broken, or confusing, just human. Of course, not every moment was triumphant. Some co-workers whispered, not cruelly, but with that hushed curiosity people indulge when they don't know what else to do. One supervisor made a clumsy comment about dress codes that Daniel handled with gracious patience. But through it all, he held on to himself with growing steadiness. Months passed. Seasons shifted. The office holiday party arrived, tacky and overlit, as always. Daniel attended in a deep blue blouse with soft pleats, paired with tailored black slacks. People complimented it without hesitation, and Daniel glowed with quiet pride. I caught him laughing with Maya at one point, a genuine, released laugh I hadn't heard before this journey began. At the end of the night, as I retrieved my coat, Daniel came over. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice trembling slightly. "Okay." "You witnessing me that first night, it changed everything. I don't know how to explain the relief of being seen without being judged. I felt tears prickling behind my eyes. You did all of this yourself. But I wasn't alone," he said. "That made all the difference." We walked out together into the cold night. Snow was falling in slow, lazy flakes, catching in Daniel's hair. The street looked like a watercolor painting. He stood there, looking up at the sky, and I thought, this is what it means for someone to become real to themselves. A year after that first night, Daniel, still Daniel, sometimes Dani, was openly fluid in expression at work. HR updated the dress code to be gender neutral, something that happened without fanfare but meant everything. New hires walked in already knowing that authenticity wasn't just tolerated here. It lived here. Sometimes I think about how small the moment seems from the outside, a boss in a bar wearing a dress. But I know what it really was. A cracking open, a beginning, a promise to oneself, witnessed gently. And every time Daniel adjusts a bracelet during a meeting, or smooths the cuff of a blouse while speaking with ease, I remember the plume of plum fabric that night at the Finch, the moment he stepped into the light, and the world made room.